What's going on, everyone? We are back for another live edition of the Bleed Los Podcast Carne Asada pregame show. Cody and I are here to talk all about game 3, which is set to start in a little while. Before we get into everything, we want to make sure to let you know about DodgersBeat.com. Stay up to date and in the know with all of the latest and most comprehensive coverage of the Los Angeles Dodgers. It is your one stop for articles, interviews, contests, merch, and more. Never miss a beat and check out DodgersBeat.com. All right, Cody, Yamamoto on the mound, a chance to sweep. The stage is set. How are you? And do you think we'll be celebrating a few hours from now?
Yeah, coming into today, a lot of anticipation with another off day yesterday. Kind of weird how the series is broken up and Dodgers get out to a 2-0 series lead. You got Yamamoto, who's basically been their ace all season long from start to finish. I like their chances today, especially, given how he's pitched over the last month, how he looked in the wild card round. I would say there's a good probability that maybe we're the only series to wrap up today because the other ones look like they're all going to be extending to a game 4 or game 5. So, but yeah, I think I'm in high spirits. A lot of, I would say, pressure is taken off the Dodgers, especially after taking both games in Philly. So tonight I'm going to try to enjoy it, and then hopefully they can get out to that early lead and Yamamoto settles in. But I think it's going to be a good game tonight.
Oh, I think it's going to be a good game. And I'm nervous, but it's more like the excited nervous, not the, oh, I'm scared to death and it's impending doom nerves. I really do think it's going to be today or tomorrow. Hoping it's today for the reason that I would like us to be able to watch the other games stress free. Dodgers, have time to rest, reset. And I think that would just put us at a total advantage, hoping that the other series do go the distance. And I think that would be the best thing for us. But either way, they got it done in Philly and they did their job. So I really do think that we're going to be walking away with it. But yeah, let's talk about it all. The lineup was released today, and we know that it's going to be Aaron Nola starting off, and they're going to, from what I'm hearing, confirm this, but they're going to probably bring in Ranger Suarez. We just don't know kind of when. The lineup looks like it would be the traditional lineup for not necessarily the right-handed pitching. Is that right?
Yeah, so it was kind of interesting to see when the lineup was announced because Aaron Nola being a right-hander, taking the mound for the Phillies, no one really knows how long he's going to go, but I would imagine the leash is very short since they are on the precipice of being eliminated from the playoffs, and he hasn't had a really good season this year, and we'll start breaking that down. But, they still kept Teoscar Hernandez in the 3-hole, Freddie Freeman batting cleanup. I mean, even Max Muncy's batting 7th in the lineup. Usually with a right-hander on the mound, he would probably be batting maybe behind Teoscar Hernandez in the 5th or 6th hole. So Dodgers clearly are breaking apart those left-handed hitters that are in their lineup. You got Ohtani leading it off, then 2 right-handed bats. Then you got Freeman, another lefty, and then another 2 right-handed bats after him. And then Muncy, the final lefty of the game for the Dodgers. So they did a nice job breaking it apart. I think this is their best lineup that we've seen this October so far. Everybody is healthy. The big addition is Will Smith finally starting. That was the question mark for everybody. Was it going to be Ben Rortvedt or was it going to be Will Smith? He appears to be healthy, and it sounds like if the Dodgers continue winning ball games, he will be in the starting lineup from this point forward. So, the lineup looks really good. They should have no issues whether it's Aaron Nola on the mound or Ranger Suarez getting into this game. I imagine the Phillies are going to throw the kitchen sink at the Dodgers tonight. Everybody should be available. So that's what we should expect. We should expect their best. Ron Thompson, the Phillies manager, is going to have his work cut out for him, just like how Dave Roberts last year, where they were facing elimination in San Diego with a bullpen game. Every single out matters, and you're going to see some urgency from both sides today, because I think one of the key things that a lot of the players said, like Kike and Muncy, was that you don't want to let any team kind of wake up. We've seen like the Yankees kind of getting some momentum from yesterday. The Phillies are just in that same boat. You can't keep them quiet for long, so you might as well go for the throat tonight and try to clinch this series while you can, because, if they win a game, a little bit of the momentum goes back to Philadelphia. If they win 2 games in LA, like we took 2 games in their house, then you start hitting the panic button a little bit. And I think the Dodgers are smart enough. I think they want the extra time off. So hopefully they can score some runs, score them early, and then let Yamamoto settle in. But all in all, the lineup does look really good tonight. I'm expecting for a little bit more offense, which is funny enough. We've only seen 1 home run hit from both these teams combined this series, and those are the first 2 games when they were 1-2, I think, in the National League. And the one home run is the Teoscar go-ahead shot in game one. Other than that, it's been a lot of situational hitting, advancing the runners, sac flies, and just some singles and doubles. So I'm expecting them from going from the East Coast here, where it's starting to get a little chilly, going back to Los Angeles, where it's a lot more, more heat. Hopefully we start seeing the ball bang around today.
Yeah, I'm hoping to see that because I think one of the things that coming into the series was that people were like, "Oh my God, two powerhouse teams. You've got a top three on each side. You got our side with, of course, the Shohei Mookie Freddie combo. Other side, you've got some superstar power in, Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber. And I think people thought it would kind of be like a slugfest between those two. And it's been relatively quiet. So in a way, I'm hoping that on our side anyway, especially our side, we're going to see kind of that superstar muscle flex from our MV3 because I would just kind of make it nice to close out and clinch tonight watching some dominance. And truth be told, I think I told you in the text chain, like I really need a stress-free game because that last game too, I think I needed 48 hours of recovery from it. And it was a lot. Let's talk about our bullpen. So tonight I kind of want to get your take on who you think we'll see because if it's by everyone in social media, everyone just wants to see Roki and pretty much no one else, but that's not realistic. So what can we expect to see out of our bullpen tonight?
Yeah, I think after game two and the way everything unfolded to end that game, obviously Dave Roberts doesn't traditionally go with Roki Sasaki to start the inning. He goes with him to get the final out of that game. They are being very mindful of his innings throughout October and the new role that he's in. But Roberts basically confirmed, but didn't confirm that he is the quote unquote closer now. He didn't use that word or that exact terminology. He just said that he's their best bet for the ninth inning, which basically means closer. So I would say he probably is available today, but if there's a situation where they can get themselves in not to use him or Emmett Sheehan, it sounds like that's what the team wants to do. Roberts, in his pregame today said, they're having catch play him and Emmett Sheehan. Once he gets a kind of gauging on how their body feels, that's when he'll determine whether they're going to be used tonight or not. But the Dodgers bullpen hasn't used a lot of their arms for good reason. They've been struggling over the last month and a half now, or even for most of the regular season, and it's kind of bled into the postseason. We saw Blake Trinan struggle. Alex Vesey has kind of been hit or miss. Emmett Sheehan is 50-50, looked really good in game two in Philadelphia, looked really bad in that wild card series. I imagine this is going to be the game if they can get Clayton Kershaw in there to kind of, give them an inning or two innings or maybe even 3 inning, save at the end of the game. This would be the time to do it and then alleviate the pressure off the rest of the bullpen and get them ready for a potential NLCS. Or say the Dodgers by, if they do go down early and something bad happens, then you can get Kershaw into, be like a mop-up role. And that way you don't have to use any of your high leverage guys and save them for tomorrow for Tyler Glasnow, who's usually kind of been 50-50. He's either sharp or he's not. So that's the gamble the Dodgers and Dave Roberts has to manage right now. But I think everybody should be available. I imagine if the game is close, Sasaki will be used. Emmett Sheehan will be used. I think they'll probably stay away from Blake Trinan, Tanner Scott still, who we haven't seen this October yet. But I'm expecting Kershaw to appear at some point tonight just because it's been a while since we've seen him pitch. They already said Tyler Glasnow won't come out of the bullpen tonight and try to get a potential close. He's in line to start tomorrow. They also said the same thing about Blake Snell, Shohei Ohtani. However, they could say one thing and then do something different in the game if it calls for it. I wouldn't be surprised if the situation calls for it and Sasaki's used before the ninth inning. Maybe they bring in Ohtani to close it out. I don't know if they would do it in the division series. I think they would probably hold that off for the championship series or World Series if they get to that point. But I think everybody should be available. Like I mentioned earlier, this game should be an urgency. You should be treating this game as a game 7 or a game 5, like you're on the losing side. That way you can just put everything to bed here, sweep the series. Don't let them get any single bit of momentum because that team on the other side pretty much is playing for nothing. They're playing for their season, but they have nothing to lose right now. They're already down 0-2 in the series, so they know what's in front of them. A loss and means their season's over. A lot of these guys want to continue their season, so I'm expecting a good fight for the Phillies. I, just as much as you, would like to see a blowout win. I just don't think that's going to happen today. For whatever reason, the offense either one struggles to get runs for Yamamoto. They did a good job about that in the wild card round, but I expect the Phillies to kind of bring their A game with pitching from the entire roster today, and that could give the Dodgers some fits. But yeah, I think the bullpen is in a good spot depending on who Roberts decides not to bring in. But I'm hoping to
Mhm.
see Kershaw today and see what he has.
I kind of do, and I think that's the sentiment in the chat. We have a Kershaw to close it out question, and I would love to see that, especially because it's at home. He's had these pivotal moments this year where he's got to, pitch in what he already knows is his last season. Now we know that, and imagine being able to clinch the NLDS tonight. Kershaw closes it out. We have a little bit of rest time before we go into the NLCS, which is going to be handled a lot differently than this because a 7-game series with a little bit of a different day off here, day off there, it has to be managed a little more, I guess, craftily, if you will, because this is different with the days off that we had. And now you got to get really tight with how you use your bullpen because it's going to be has to be a Dave Roberts like a manager masterclass in order for us to win this. And that's where Blake Trinan comes in again, because the last 2 days have been absolute like hell on him in the comment section. And while I am so grateful for what he brought to us last season, he was sharp. This year, not his year. Doesn't mean he won't be next year, but I really think that we have a large enough sample size where he's just off. And doesn't mean he's a bad pitcher, but this is really just he's having a cold streak right now, and it's going on a little long, and a lot of the fan base does not really want to see him come out. But we talked on our last episode that in order for us to be able to use him in the NLCS, and we're going to need him. And that means Dave Roberts wants to see what he has. And so as hard as it is for all of us to like say, oh God, like Trinan, Dave Roberts has to be able to rely on his pieces. And I think that's where the loyalty has come from, not so much just because he likes him and he's, they're friends. It is about he knows he's going to need him very soon and he wants to be able to,
And
get over
that's very true about a lot of the guys in the Dodgers bullpen tonight. Another arm that I wouldn't, it's maybe a hot take that I wouldn't mind seeing today, given the circumstances, if there's a good enough lead or, I'm just feeling confident about how he looks, the demeanor. Tanner Scott. I think Tanner Scott, this is his series to make his
Okay.
mark. The Phillies have a lot of impact left-handed bats. Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, just to name two of them. And they're in the lineup. They haven't come through at all in this series, so they're pressing. Why not get Tanner Scott in there if you're comfortable with it? You're going to have to use a lot of these guys, especially I never like to think too far ahead, but if they do win tonight or tomorrow or a game 5 and they win the division series, the way the NLCS is set up, you only get 2 off days through that 7-game series. You're going to have to use multiple bullpen arms. You can't just use the same 2 or 3 guys. And Dave Roberts even alluded to that in yesterday's conference. He's like, I would like to use Sasaki or 1 or 2 arms every single day, but that's just not feasible in today's world, especially with a guy like Sasaki who is in a new role, missed almost all of the season due to an injury. You don't want to push him too hard. He's a guy that has a lot of, velocity and spin, all that stuff. So that's definitely grinding on his body and his arm. So how much do you truly want to overwork him and risk further injury if possible? So you're going to see some bullpen management tonight. I think we're going to see some faces we haven't seen this October yet. I think Kershaw would be one. Tanner Scott could possibly be another one. And if they're really feeling it, I wouldn't be against Blake Trinan getting in there. I think that his appearance in Philly was bad, but his previous 2 were fine. He handled the Reds fine. He closed out game that one game. I think it was game 1, and then in game 2, or I think game 1 of the NLDS, or he actually pitched and did fine as well. So we even talked about our post game, the Nick Castellanos stuff. He really just flailed his bat out there. The only bad pitch he made that entire inning that I would say is definitely on him was that pitch, that sinker that was just middle to JT Romuto, who is a veteran hitter, waited for it and just smacked it right down the line. So that's the one pitch you want to say, all right, that's on you, Blake, but Dave Roberts, credit to him, he had the shortest leash imaginable. He said, hey, you can't get 3 outs. I'm not going to let you work out of your mess like I did last year. I'm hooking you right now. So Dave Roberts has managed with urgency this entire series. I expect that to continue today and for the rest of October. But today especially, can't emphasize it enough. You got to manage this like it's a winner or go home game if you're the Dodgers.
That's what gives me a little confidence is that Roberts will pull him and he's going to make sure that he has something lined up if it starts to go astray. And what you saw with the position players was just magnificent. Now, at the end of last game, I needed a minute to just kind of digest the fact that we had won when it looked like we were about to kind of go into a place where the series would be tied 1-1. But what I was able to kind of go back and watch and really absorb the last couple days was that amazing play that between, Muncy, Mookie, that they call the wheel play. And that has gotten a lot of press the last couple of days because I guess it was kind of Muncy gave credit to Mookie, Freddie, all of them got together and decided they were going to run. It's not a play that you will typically see in MLB, even though you see it a lot more at the younger levels in baseball. But it would have to be super precise for that thing to work. And Muncy was on foul territory today talking about kind of how that came to be and talking about the baseball IQ that exists on the field in order for something like that to actually work and to not screw it up. Because he said it has 100 different ways it could go wrong and maybe one or two ways that that's going to go right, but it has to be handled to precision. And it made me think of just the fundamentals. We saw this last year in the World Series against the Yankees. We knew that the fundamentals were just, on point last year with our players. There's so much veteran experience. Do you think that if we do get to the next level and go through these next couple of rounds, it's really going to be the fundamentals and the veteran experience of our players that's going to pull us through?
Yeah, I do. And I think it's showing in this series alone. Going back to that wheel play, Jimmy Rollins in the postgame pretty much criticized the Phillies. The Mookie Betts and everybody, they crashed on that first pitch that Vesia threw that was up and away. And Bryson Stott and the entire Phillies dugout didn't see that they were running the wheel play or at least crashing in on the bunt. Usually the most basic baseball player would be like, all right, they know I'm bunting, they're crashing, let's pull it back and try to slap it here. And the Phillies, to the Dodgers' credit, they didn't learn and they bunted straight into the wheel play, which it is a very routine play to run that you don't see in Major League Baseball because most guys don't bunt anymore. But if you check anywhere, like Little League, hell, even in my men's league, the guys that don't have the power anymore that are pressing 40, they'll drop a bunt down. You got to be ready for that. But credit to the Dodgers, credit to Mookie Betts. It was a very good play. You don't see it a lot. And their defense for throughout this NLDS and this postseason run has been pretty top notch. Besides a few mismanaged routes by Teoscar Hernandez and Andy Pages with some errant throws not hitting his cutoff, but other than that, the infield defense has been pretty locked down. Even Max Muncy, who isn't the best third baseman out there, he knows the basic stuff to do, and he gave Mookie Betts a perfect throw on that bunt to get the out at third of a running Castellanos. They're going to need it if they move on because by all accounts, the Cubs did pull away with a win today, so they did force a game 4. I do think the Brewers are probably going to move on still. I would be shocked if they don't. And I do think the Dodgers are going to eventually move on, whether they win today, tomorrow, or a game 5. That Brewers club is like, we can get into it in a week or so, hopefully when they're playing. But that Brewers club is the almost opposite of what the Dodgers are. They don't slug. They don't do anything. They just play elite defense. They get on base and they are speedsters on the base path, which is kind of like the Dodgers kryptonite. So they're going to have to lock it up. And they've been doing a good job of that in October so far. And that's credit to their starting pitching, their defense, their good base running when they're on the bases, and clutch situational hitting. I feel like the Dodgers have done a really good job when they get runners on to try to advance them, whether it's a sac fly, a bunt, or, whatever they got to do to get those runs across. They, like we said, 1 home run this series. That's from the Dodgers. Usually their bread and butter is live by the long ball. This series, they've kind of been doing it in other ways. They weren't slashing the ball into the outfield like they did against the Reds or throughout the regular season. They're kind of just putting the ball in play and taking that extra base. And I expect them to do it tonight. Nick Castellanos is out there in the outfield. No Harrison Bader. Philly's outfield defense kind of shaky right now. So you could see the Dodgers, like Teoscar Hernandez, saying, you know what, let me put in an extra burner and try to take that extra base, something we usually don't see from him. You may see more of that tonight as they try to, get as many runs as they can early against Aaron Nola, Aaron Nola in the first inning this year has an ERA over 7. So I'm expecting the Dodgers to pounce. If they don't, I'm going to be a little disappointed.
I mean, I used to be more worried about Dodgers and going against pitchers with a 5+ ERA, thinking, oh my God, if it's the Dodgers of the regular season, that is their kryptonite. But this, they've, I mean, honestly, they just popped that switch up and they just turned it on. And I'm not worried about that right now. I really think that they're going to get it done. And going back to the potential, for the next series, who knows who will play? Probably the Brewers if we do make it through. But I'm less worried about 7-game series than I am if we were to play a short series. It's the short series that scare the crap out of me. I know that and trust that Dave Roberts will manage well enough to get us through a 7-game series. And will the Brewers sweep us or will we sweep them? No. I think it'll go the distance a little bit. But I do think that at the end we'll come out on top. And I'm way less worried about the World Series because I just feel like the NL is the stronger side. So yeah, I believe that if we get it done tonight, they're going to put a nice game plan in action for whoever the next team is. And I think that that'll be something fun we'll get to talk about in the next week. But going back to Castellanos for a second, because I really was thinking about this a lot, aside from the fact that he is just a slow player who didn't catch the wheel play, but one of the things that he has said, and it was in the media quite a bit, he almost kind of turned the I don't want to say blame on the fans of Philly who are known to be very passionate about their team, but talking about, when it's going right, they're all in, and when it's going wrong, you feel it. And it was kind of contrasted with, I believe, what Bryce Harper said, who really just complimented the fans and said, hey, I boo myself too. But I kind of want to get your take on what you think about fans booing their own team. And then Castellanos and his comments, does that kind of go back to kind of there's a little bit of tension there that you can sense between him and the club?
Yeah, I think with Castellanos, I'll touch on that first. I just
Mhm.
think, my one friend was there at game two, and he's not one that usually is like arrogant or obnoxious as a Phillies fan. He is very like well tempered, he understands the game. But even he was booing the team in game two because your star players aren't showing up. You're wasting opportunities. You're in the postseason. They've made it every single year since 2022. They make it to the World Series that first run, and then every single year they've been taking a step back. NLCS loss, then an NLDS loss, and now they're looking at their face of an NLDS sweep here. That's pretty much the cherry on top, and they want results. And this city knows that there's like this window of this core of players. Like they can re-sign a lot of these guys back, but who knows? A lot of these other teams may be, hoping to sign a Kyle Schwarber or a JT Realmuto or anything like that. And Castellanos, I like him. I like his swagger. I like the way he plays the game. When things are going really good for him, he's one of the best players to watch. I remember when he was on the Reds a couple years ago, where it just seemed like he had 40 home run power and he could run the base as well. He looked electric on defense, even though he wasn't the best corner outfielder over there, but he just had a certain type of demeanor on the field, and he backed up his trash talk and the things that he would say with his play. And he kind of seemed like a perfect fit for Philly, but then when he starts to struggle with adversity, he gets benched this year with Rob Thompson, not liking the defensive or the hustle play, ends his believe he was like one of the current active players with the most games started in a row, and that streak ended there. A lot of tension going on in the clubhouse, and I think probably starting to see the end of the Castellanos era in Philadelphia. I mean, a lot of our guys around here think he's probably going to get traded in the offseason, especially after these comments. Like, can't really come back home and expect a warm welcome now, even if they do force a game 5, unless he comes up massive in today's game and potentially tomorrow's game to force that game 5. Because then the Phillies fans would be like, you know what? You let our team win, we're going to cheer you on, and then everybody's happy. But I just don't see that here. I'm seeing a lot of struggles and issues with this Phillies team right now, whether it's internally with the fan base. And that's something I mentioned coming into this. They kind of had a lot of drama following them from the regular season, and that's not what you want going into October, especially when you're facing the defending World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers. You just can't have it. Everything has to be uptight. You have to have one goal and one focus. And this Phillies team just doesn't have it right now. A lot of the fans are very gloom and doom right now, and for good reason. They're down 0-2 in the series, and it's hard to kind of get excited to think that they're going to come back with the way they've played and the emotion and the attitude that they're showing. And then for the type of fan that I am, I think if you deserve to be booed, I'll boo you, but I'm not going to boo you like super hard or come at you or come at your family, all that stuff. But, I know one guy that always got a lot of hate was Kenley Jansen, and he got his fair share of boos here and there. Some of them I did think was warranted just because of the amount of blown saves and the opportunities that he was given, especially in the last like 2 or 3 years of his career. It was frustrating to watch. Or like Craig Kimbrell doing his thing. I think that's your right as a fan to do it. But yeah, everybody's different. This city over here in Philadelphia, they want their team to win, and they can see the writing on the wall. It's not looking good in this series. I think only 4 or 5 teams have ever come back down
Mhm.
0-2 in the divisional series. So that their odds are stacked against them. And then you got Yamamoto going on the mound today. And then if they don't get the job done, then you got Glass now, and then possibly Otani in game 5. So things just aren't looking good in Philly. They are frustrated, and I would be frustrated too.
I get it. I like to kind of tap into their podcasts and their shows and kind of see what the talk is amongst their fan base and just their people that kind of just talk Phillies day in and day out. But I usually do that with most series. I kind of just jump in and see like when we're playing the Mets or when we're playing other teams. But then throughout the year, I kind of just touch in and kind of just see what the consensus is. And lately, I saw some recent Padres podcasts, some Mets podcasts, some Phillies most recently, and a lot of the sentiment is that we have a Los Angeles Dodgers problem because for the next like foreseeable future, we could get to this point and then the Dodgers just have their, ultimate kill switch that they turn on and they play like, the Avengers. And what are we going to do about this in the coming years? And I think that it really just kind of, even though people will still love, teams are going to still try to beat us, but I really feel like it's kind of deflating sometimes when they actually have to face the Dodgers. And if the Dodgers are playing like this, they're like, when are we ever going to win a title? But that just leads me to my next question. Do you think that the only thing in the Dodgers' way is the Dodgers themselves from getting their next title?
I mean, yeah, when you look at, that's kind of my mentality of throughout this entire Dodgers run. A lot of the times when they went out with a whimper in the postseason, it was kind of that they just didn't show up. It wasn't that they weren't, outclassed by the other team. They just didn't live up to what they did in the regular season, and we saw that way too often throughout this current run. Whether it was early divisional exits in the division series, or just falling flat in the championship series after, in 2021 losing to an 80 like what 5 Braves winning Braves team that ended up winning the World Series, but yeah, I think they're their biggest enemy. And Muncy kind of alluded to that too, where you can't get ambushed coming into postseason play. Like you have to be ready. And I think, me and Anthony were talking about it. That's just kind of the vibe I've been seeing the past 2 years. Last year, they just were ready for every single, game. They overcame a lot of adversity in the NLDS last year. So a lot less stressful this year. But it seems like every at bat has a purpose, and the pitchers look great. The bullpen knows their job, and then the hitters are taking good quality at bats and getting runs when they can. And the Dodgers lineup this year, especially even like in game 2 when they're getting shut out for like what 6 innings, they're going to put up a crooked number at some point, and they ended up breaking through against Luzardo and the Phillies bullpen. That's something that frustrates the hell out of every other team around the league, and I understand it. You're a
Mhm.
Phillies team that wins 96 games, and your first matchup is the Dodgers. They go through the wild card round, but they are the defending World Series champs. They, their payrolls like $400 million with the tax, and they have star after star. You face Otani, then you get to face Betts, then Teoscar, who's a postseason hero, and then Freddie Freeman, who just won World Series MVP and has had a really good Hall of Fame career himself. And then the lineup, Tommy Edmonds hitting ninth. I mean, that's their worst hitter right now. That would be an above average player on every other team. So it is frustrating if you're an opposing fan, but for a Dodgers fan like us that's kind of seen them go through highs and lows, I don't care. I kind of think it's funny because it's like, I know you don't want us to win back to back to back World Series, but Major League Baseball has had a lot of parity, and I'm okay if the Dodgers want to buck that trend for the next couple
Yeah.
seasons, because eventually it will end. I mean, you think. I don't know if with this current ownership and front office and the players that they have and continue to go get, if it may end anytime soon. But yeah, I think the Dodgers are always going to be built to win that season for the next at least 5 years, especially with this current group. Even when they retire, I imagine they're going to go after it in free agency, trade market like they always do. So it is frustrating if you're a fan of a National League team like the Phillies, the Padres, the Cubs, Brewers, all that. But then you also have a
Mhm.
Brewers team that, their payroll is like a couple $100 million, if that. And they're about to make it to the league championship series as well. That's the beauty of baseball. But yeah, I think their biggest enemy is themselves. And right now they're feeling themselves. They feel very confident, and it's hard to beat a confident baseball team.
That's all we ask for them to get hot at the right time, and they're meeting that challenge so far. Hope that can continue. But yeah, just to kind of put a bow on that conversation, I saw so many different comments about people that are reacting to the Dodgers. I think we're on a 9-game win streak at this point, and they're just calling the Dodgers something like a cobra, or just like a snake, like a 9-headed snake that you just never know when it's going to strike. It could strike at any time during the game, because eventually they're going to find a way to crack that game open, and you just never know who it's going to be. It might not even be their MV3. It might not be their top stars, because like you just said, there's pretty much a talented person at every place in the lineup, and you just don't know when they're going to have that moment. So that really sets kind of like the other teams at a disadvantage, because they're just so dang good. And I'm not going to apologize either, because we waited a long time for this to happen to us, and we've been through some tough years as Dodger fans. Even though people would argue that we're the luckiest, well, we're lucky right now, but we've had some adversity to overcome. All right, so let's just kind of talk about a little bit about tonight. We are going to have a game at, gosh, pretty soon at 6:08. You have Yamamoto, and you and I should talk about kind of like what we think the prediction will be, and then we'll kind of wrap up the show. So, what's going to be the score tonight, Cody?
Yeah, I'm expecting a low scoring game today. As much as I want the offense to come out, I think the Phillies are going to get creative. They're going to throw everything that they can pitching wise at the Dodgers to try to keep this thing as close as possible. I think at the sight of trouble Aaron Nola gets in, whether it's the first, second, or third inning,
Okay.
Thompson is going to pull him. They're going to bring in Suarez, and if Suarez can't get the job done, they're just going to go through all their dependable bullpen arms. I mean, this is it. This is it for them. If they get down early and they lose this game, their season's over. So that's what the Dodgers are facing right now. They're facing a team that has nothing to lose. So I think they're going to get the toughest game yet from the Phillies. But I do think Yamamoto will match whatever they do pitch for pitch. Yamamoto's been one of the best pitchers in baseball this season. He's arguably been the best pitcher since, the start of August, especially
Mhm.
September, where he won pitcher of the month, almost threw that no-hitter. You continue. I believe he's only given up a handful of runs over his last 5 or 6 starts. Everything has looked good from Yamamoto, and I think he is a postseason pitcher. I think he's one of those guys that steps up when the lights are brightest. Besides that game 1 of the division series last year, he's looked phenomenal. He's one of the most dependable arms, and he's starting game 3. The Phillies couldn't touch Blake Snell. They couldn't touch Shohei Ohtani, and Yamamoto has been better than both of those guys this year. Not only on the back of the baseball card, all his stats, the numbers that he's put up, making 30 starts this season, ERA, in the 2s, whip below 1. This guy just doesn't give up hits. He doesn't give up runs. All he asks is from the Dodgers to give him a little bit of run support, because you could add probably at least almost 10 wins to his column this season if they gave him a little bit of run support, or the bullpen didn't blow it late for him like Tanner Scott did a couple of times. I'm going to go with the close one. I think the Dodgers do win today. I will say they win 4-3. Could be another late inning, possibly a walk-off win, or they take the lead in the 7th or 8th. But I
Okay.
also could just see the Dodgers just jumping on Aaron Nola in the first inning and riding away with it. Maybe it's a blowout win. But I just feel like the Phillies are going to give up their best fight. They're a 96-win team for a reason. They've been to the World Series recently. They got the powder blues working today. We'll see. That's their mojo. They're 6-1 in those uniforms this season.
That's
Going to be an aesthetically pleasing matchup, because I do love those uniforms.
And they're not bad at all. There's a lot worse uniforms out there. Yeah, I want a blowout. I know it's probably not going to be that. That doesn't traditionally happen in most playoff games, but I want them to go for the kill. I want them to go for the kill early. I want them to get ahead. My fear is, and will always be, the late innings, 7th and 8th, because I am good up until the 6th or 7th inning, and then it's just up to God at that point, and I don't know how to get through those last 6 outs, 9 outs. It's hard in this household, but I'm sure all our Dodger fans will be sweating it out. But if they can get a nice lead, I want to see champagne bottles tonight. I know we'll see them tonight or tomorrow. I'm just confident they're comfortable there at Dodger Stadium. We've got our boy Yamamoto on the mound. The lights are never too bright for him, and I am just so excited to go watch this game. So I'm going to call it the Dodgers are going to win. Don't know the final score, but we're going to win by at least 4 tonight. So I'm going to say that, and I'm just super, super
I
excited.
would definitely appreciate that. Let me enjoy every single moment if they score. If they drop, the first inning's the big one. I mentioned Nola's ERA in the first inning is above 7. If the Dodgers can't capitalize on that, I'm gonna expect the worst from this offense right now. Some guy that's due is Otani. He hasn't really done much of this NLDS.
Right?
He did get that RBI single in Game 2, but the Phillies lefties have kind of neutralized his bat. Um, I'm looking for him to do something big in the first inning. Hopefully, he can start this game off with a bang or at least an extra base hit. Mookie Betts has really good career numbers against Aaron Nola, and Aaron Nola isn't the same guy that
Mm-hmm.
the Dodgers have faced in years past. This guy went 5-10 this season with an ERA over 6. So the Phillies are betting on a lot from Nola today to get the Phillies to a good start. And if the Dodgers can pounce early, they would just take all the air out of the Phillies clubhouse and their lineup and the dugout. And Yamamoto being on the mound, I could just see him just taking that and just shutting this team down because it's imperative that the Phillies get a scoreless inning and score first tonight. If neither of those happen, I don't anticipate them having much life today.
Well, the Phillies and Yamamoto haven't faced off too many times. It's a very small sample size, but of all of them, it looks like Harrison Bader has the best numbers against Yamamoto.
He does. He has like
And
4 hits, and he wasn't there when Yamamoto made his one and only start against the Phillies. It was all the way back in April. He ended up taking the loss in that game, even though he only gave up 1 run and it wasn't earned. He went 6 innings, got I think like 8 or 9 strikeouts at Citizens Bank Park. So he's fine. I think he'll be able to navigate around this lineup. That's definitely going to be pressing to try to do something big because their team's down 0-2 in the series. And Yamamoto, if he's got his slider and fastball working, I mean, everything else just goes off of that. And then the splitter, he is a guy that is a tough pitcher to face. And we saw him put it all together this year. He forced the Dodgers to go to the NLCS last year. I don't expect that to change today.
mm, yeah, I'm excited. I love watching Yamamoto pitch. So yeah, we are going to definitely have a post show where we're going to be talking about it all. Anthony's going to be joining us right at the end of the game. So definitely come back here so we can talk all about just hopefully 9 innings of amazing baseball. And we'll hopefully be doing our own little toast, right, Cody? You're getting the drink started early.
Yes, we are. We're hopefully celebrating. Anthony will be back for the post game, but regardless, anybody that's watching now and then all the fans that we have come join us for the post game, hopefully we're all celebrating tonight.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. Yeah, for all of you guys for joining us. And I see the chat. And thank you for joining us for this pregame edition of the Bleed Lows podcast. Yeah, so everyone go enjoy the show and we will see you right after the game. Let's go, Dodgers.